G'day crew, it's Ross here in my office and I'm standing in front of this beautiful Persian rug. Now unfortunately it's of the non-flying variety. It is just for hanging on my wall. Now I picked this up in the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul last year. It's been sitting on the floor of my office for a year and finally last weekend I got it up on the wall, so mission accomplished. So what I thought I'd do in this video is run you through your options for putting a soft furnishing, i.e. a rug, up on a hard surface, i.e. plaster, or gyprock or drywall or whatever you're going to call it in your part of the world. Now we've got a number of options. One of them is we could use a brad. Now a brad or a tiny little nail, all right, you can see that there, is about 1 centimetre long or less than half an inch. And I could have someone hold this against a wall. I can lift up that little bit of trimming at the top and place my brad under there and nail this into the wall. Okay, nice and simple. This will sit right against the wall. Pretty easy. Assuming you've got two people. The disadvantage is if I want to take it off the wall, I'm going to have a little machine gun row of holes and that might weaken the plaster, which is not really fantastic. Although it is a cheap solution. We'll put that aside. Okay, option 2 is to take a screw. Not one as big as this, but a small screw, and I do the same thing. Now the problem with a screw is they're always going to be thicker. So they're actually going to put a hole in your rug. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, even if I get one with a small head, say half that, you're still going to see it because that trim is only about 3 mils wide. So that's not a great solution either. And you're going to end up with some screw holes on the other side. You can't really get away from some sort of hole in the wall, generally. Right, let's look at option number 3. We've got some Velcro stickers. Now these actually work quite well. One side Velcros to the wall, one side Velcros to your item. And once they've had about an hour to set, that item will stay on the wall. And the great thing is, when we have it on the wall and we want to take it off, we can very gently pull down this piece, the sticky actually comes away and you never know anything was there. Let's take a look over here. Now I've got this wooden fish hook that I picked up in New Zealand many years ago and it's in a nice hard display box. And I've started to put up some mementos on this wall. With this one being a hard display box, it's really simple. I've got my Velcro stickers and I've got my Velcro stickers. And as I said, I can just take these off. You'll never know they were there. I can take this off the wall, I can put it back on the wall. Here we go. It's not going to move. Perfect. Nice and simple. The problem is that while that Velcro will stick to a hard surface, it's not going to stick to this surface. They just don't stick to this material. Now I could make it stick, I could put some epoxy on it, or I could put some super glue. The problem is that's going to soak into the material and it's probably going to damage it, or at the very least discolor it, so not really a great option. Now that leads us to another option. I could put the whole rug, mount it onto a piece of, say, MDF or thin marine ply or ply of some sort, and then the ply could have Velcro on it, stick onto the wall. Yes, I could do that, and I could just use some very light spray adhesive to do that, and some very light, say, 3mm MDF. That's definitely an option, but it's a lot of mucking around, and you're going to need a lot of those Velcro dots. So what I've done, I've come up with a very elegant, very simple solution that allows me to hang this, and then if I want to take it down to clean it, it's seconds to unhang. How many seconds? That many seconds. All right, so it's really simple, a simple wooden jig, and I put it up there, and it is not going to fall off. And it sticks about half an inch off the wall, all right? So it's perfect. If I want to take it down and clean it, nice and simple. And if I want to remove the whole thing, I do have 3 screw holes in the wall, but I can take those screws out. I can fill the holes with a bit of plaster, paint it, and you'll never know anything was there. It's a very simple solution. I'll show you one that I've done up. Now I've just used this 19 by 42mm pine batten. 1.2 meters of this costs $5 at Bunnings. Any size really, you don't want to go too big, but you can go a bit bigger than this. Now what I've done is I've just cut it. As you can see, that's how I'm going to cut it at an angle. One piece is going to attach to the material, and I am using brads for that. And the other piece is going to screw into the plaster right there. That's a fairly loose screw in, but it just goes in like that, and then it can't move. It can go sideways. It's not going to generally, but that's it. Really, really simple, really elegant. What we're going to do now, I'm going to go out in the shed and show you exactly how we made this. So we're in the shed. I've got my rug, and I've got a batten of pine wood. Now this pine is 19 by 42mm. The actual size doesn't matter. Now that's about 1 3/4 by 3/4 of an inch. It's nice and light and it's fairly cheap. This one was $5.02. They've gone up quite a lot in the last couple of years. Now these are supposed to be kiln dried. They should be straight, flat and not twisted. But I went through over 40 pieces until I found this one. So each time I pick one up, I'm looking to see that it's not warped this way, it's not warped that way, and it's not warped that way. This one is straight and not twisted, so that's perfect. A lot of the time, they're taken out of the kiln before they're fully dried, and as they sit on the rack at the hardware store, they dry a little bit more and they twist. You don't want that, so it's worth spending 5 minutes getting a straight piece. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it at an angle with the saw. And what I want to do is I want to turn it from, that to that. All right? So there we go. I've got two pieces that have been cut at an angle. And then I'm going to cut it to length. You'll notice here that I've come in about 3 centimetres either side. When I'm looking at the rug, I don't want to see the wood. So just a little bit either side, about 1 inch. So this piece of wood is about 2 inches shorter than the width of the rug. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach one of these to the plaster and I'm going to attach one of these to the rug. I could cut this to length and then try and cut the angle through here, but that's going to be hard. So what I'll do is I'm going to cut the angle through here first and then cut the amount I need, sand it, and once I've done that, I can install one of these in the side and I'm going to show you how I'm going to install the other one onto the rug. So we need approximately 60 centimetres cut for this. So I'm going to mark that there. As long as I go past this point, that'll be fine. I'll go just past it and then that'll cut the 2 pieces where I need them and then I'll cut this off and I'll have myself a scrap of wood for another project. Now I'm going to stick it out like this and that way I can cut here to about there and not hit my bench. Simple F-clamp. We'll clamp that down fairly tight. Another one. Right, that's not going to move. Now how am I going to cut at that angle? Well, the answer to that's pretty simple. I'm going to use my circular saw here and I'm just going to set that, in this instance, at a bit over 30 degrees. So you can set the angle of this. You can see that I can do that. I can go all the way over to 56 degrees, which is too much. In this instance, just on about 35 will be sufficient. We'll tighten that up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it along. Now, when I run it along, you will have seen these metal guides. The problem with these metal guides is they're really quite narrow. And so when you're trying to use the metal guide, this thing is going to move that way and you're going to end up with a snaky line. So what I've done is I've cut a piece of stake, a wooden stake, and I've just screwed it on and made that piece a lot longer. And so, I'm going to bring it back here. That is going to guide along quite nicely. There we are. I'll set that where I want it. So I'm going to start at the end of my piece of wood here. And this nice long guide that I've got now is going to run along quite nicely. I'm going to hold this and put my ears on and off we go. Right, sawdust everywhere. And if we take a look at the end here, we can see that we've got that angle. Beautiful. I've cut past my 60 centimetre mark, so now I just need to cut that off. Give this a sand all around, and we are ready to drill some holes and get this thing mounted. So I'm going to take the guide off, because that will get in the way of me cutting this way. I'll set this back to straight across, line up and cut straight across there. So there we go. And now I've got my 2 pieces. Now it's quite sharp. So all I'm going to do is get on the sander. I'm going to sand this all the way around and when we'll be ready to go. Now all we're going to do next is take our piece of wood, put it like that, and then I'm going to position it first so it's about 1 inch inside either end, And what I'm going to do is lift up that little bit of edging under there and pop some little brads, very small brads, through into the top of that pine. Now this bit is a little bit difficult because these brads are very small. So what I've got is a little pair of pliers here. Oh, I've already lost one. There we go, little ring pliers, any pliers really, to hold it down. I'm going to lift up this little lip, making sure that the brad is upright. Stick him through the other side, and then I'll position it so that he's actually on the wood. Now, when I've done that, I bring the piece of material back over top and you cannot tell there's anything there, which is what I want. It's hidden. I'm just going to simply work my way along and do exactly the same thing right along this bit of wood. I'll probably put 6 or 7 of these in. What we have now is a whole bunch of brads in there, and they're sitting just under this little lip. Okay, so you can't see them, and they're holding that carpet on quite nicely. So there's nothing more to do here. What we need to do is take this other piece, drill a couple of holes and get it ready for mounting, and then go into the office and put this onto the wall. And I'm going to do it against a piece of wood. And that way there'll be no tear out as the drill comes out of this piece of wood. And we can see that it's drilled straight through without making any damage. Now it's going to sit this way. So what I need to do is countersink from this side. So there's our 3 holes, 1, 2, 3, and that'll go against the plaster. What we're going to use is this packet here, cost me $5, and these are plastic toggles. So we're going to put a hole in the wall, 3 holes, we're going to put these plaster plugs in, and then we're going to use these screws to go through this wood into these plugs, and that's going to hold the whole thing onto the wall. Now these plaster toggles are 8mm, so that's how wide the hole has to be in the plaster. So what I'll do is I'll put a small pilot hole in first, and it'll come into the 8mm. I'll drill the 3 holes, put in the 3 plugs, and then once we do that, I can put these screws in and we'll go straight through into the wall. Okay, so we're back in the room. Now I'm not going to worry about leveling it. I'm just going to put a mark at the top so I know the height that I need it to be at. So I drill the first one there, and then I get my level, make sure it's level, put a line across, and then I can drill these 2 out. I'll start with a pilot hole. There we go. Now whenever you're drilling through plaster, make sure you're not drilling with somewhere there's likely to be electrical. I've got an electrical point down here, so that will either be going straight up into the roof or sideways. If I was drilling above an electrical point, I'd be thinking twice about it because I could be drilling into wires. Now I'm going to take my 8mm drill now. And what I should now be able to do is put in my wall anchor, which will go in there. There we go. And as I screw into that, we can see here that wall anchor will tighten up. So I'm going to put the first one in, I'm going to screw it in, and then I can get the others level and adjusted. Now I'll give this a little tap. Not much, we don't want to damage the plaster, we just want to make sure it's flush. Now the next step is we'll put our screw that came with the wall anchor into our piece of wood. We'll screw it through a little bit. Yep, there we are. And I'm not going to tighten it up because I want to get it level before I do that. All right, so I'm going to check the level at the top there. I'm very happy with that. And then draw a very light line underneath. There we go. And so I know that is now level. And I can come back and I can drill both of those holes and install the wall anchors behind. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to drill that pilot hole through the existing holes. There we are. Okay, easy peasy. Pop those anchors in and just tap them so they're flush. There we are. That's all we need. Now we should be able to put the other two screws in, screw the whole thing tight, and as they get screwed in, they should tighten up. So I've got my wall, I know that's straight. I've got my jig, only 3 holes. If I want to take it off, I take the screws out, I pop the anchors out, I fill it full of filler, and then I can paint, and you'll never know that was there. Pretty straightforward. I've mounted my rug onto my other piece of wood, and all I have to do now is slide that onto there, and look at that. Nice and simple. And there we go. It's actually as simple as that. A $5 piece of wood, a couple of bucks worth of wall anchors, and a few little brads to anchor this to the wood, and probably an hour of your time. So a pretty straightforward job, quite elegant. Also, you're going to need a level to make sure that piece of wood goes level when you put it up. All right, guys, I do appreciate a like, a subscribe if you like the content, but at the very least, hopefully you found that useful. All right, thanks for your time as always. Till next time, happy fixing. See ya.